Well, the dust has finally settled on the IHSAA sectional championships, and it was a whirlwind of a week with some of these teams playing up to 3 games in a matter of 5 days to decide who would come out as the sectional champion. And teams fought hard. Fort Wayne soccer did not disappoint, but in the end, there were tears all over the field. Tears of pure joy as teams advanced as sectional champions, and tears of total heartbreak as others walked away and said goodbye to a hard-fought season and a hard-fought sectional. In this episode of Fort Wayne Footy, we'll talk about the sectional games we experienced here in Northeast Indiana, and we'll look ahead. We'll celebrate the champions and look at what's ahead for them in the regional semifinals this coming week. Before we get too far into it, though, let me remind you that tonight's episode is brought to you by OmniSource, one of America's largest processors, distributors, and managers of scrap and secondary metals based right here in Fort Wayne. Check out their services at omnisource.com. And by LaserX, the Midwest's largest laser tag and arcade. They specialize in birthday parties, corporate team building, youth groups, sports teams, and family entertainment. I personally have scheduled events at LaserX for each of the scenarios just mentioned, and I have never been disappointed. You can find them at laserxfw.com. That's laser with a Z, laserxfw.com. And if you get over there, be sure to tell them Fort Wayne Footy sent you. Welcome to episode 25 of Fort Wayne Footy. We're glad you are here joining us. It's been an exciting week of soccer in the Fort Wayne area as sectionals happened. As you know, we mentioned just in the intro, there's so many games in such a short amount of time, and just a handful of teams left from the Fort Wayne area moving on to regional championships. My name's Brian, host of the show tonight, here with Micah, Paul, and Todd. Welcome to the show, guys. Micah, how you doing, man? Let's start with you. How are you tonight?
I'm okay. Had better evenings, but no, we had a really tough result last night. I thought my girls played really well. Did everything that we could, but unfortunately it didn't go our way. And shout out to the Dwenger girls for winning the sectional championship.
Yeah. There's got to be a winner and got to be a loser. And unfortunately, sometimes we're on the wrong end of that. So your girls had a good season, man. And we'll talk more about that as we go, as we get into that game. Todd, welcome back, man. It's been a while. Now, you've been hanging out backstage a little bit and feeding us some stats and correcting our stats when we're getting them wrong. But good to have you on screen tonight, man. How are you?
Hey, good to be here. Good to be here.
And Todd, not Todd, you just talked. Paul, you're the last one on the screen here, man. Always with the stats, always with the good stuff. And man, you did a good job tonight setting us up for this conversation. So I'm excited to get into that. But before we get too far, how are you feeling tonight?
I'm good, thanks. Yeah, thanks for having me back. I think it seems like just a couple of weeks ago, I was doing my first episode here to help kick off the high school season with the preseason rankings. And now here we are at the back end of the season. So I'm excited for this episode.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. It did go pretty quick here. So we got, again, so many games to talk about tonight as sectionals happened. We got regional semifinals coming up and some teams from the Fort Wayne area and greater Fort Wayne area moving on to some bigger, tougher matchups, apparently. And we'll talk about those rankings. We'll talk about expectations because Paul put together some great charts for us that my wife was like, man, you guys are geeks. You guys are nerds getting into this stuff. And I'm like, this is awesome. So we may be able to predict regional winners tonight because of Paul's data. Thank you, Paul. We'll share that later as we get going. But we've got to share, first of all, our
soccer moment of the week.
Not getting the laughter out of you guys like I used to. With that, we're getting used to it. Mike, I'll start with you. How about your soccer moment of the week this week?
Soccer moment of the week. I'm going to talk real quick about Corey Brown. She scored 31 goals this year, and scoring goals against the best teams. So it's not as if she's scoring 6 or 7 against the lower teams, but had a goal against Dwanger in the finals. End up losing that match 2-1, but she was definitely a huge impact on the game. So much that anytime she would touch the ball, you would just hear the opposing team just yell double, triple, trying to run as many players at her as she can. And she even broke through six players. So Corey is absolutely one of the better players in the area. And I just want to make sure she gets the recognition that she needs.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Thanks. Todd, soccer moment of the week, man.
Well, a lot of sectionals. I have a feeling you guys are gonna talk about some of the sectional matchups and stuff. And I saw a couple and some great goaltending play at Northrop on the girls' side. I like that. But I'm gonna go a little bit different and go to the little guys and girls. Finished up Huntertown Rec the first season with Fort Wayne Sport Club up on the north side of town on Saturday, and that's just a blast to see the kids just out there having fun, playing the sport. You know, nothing at stake, just having a great time with the game. Love seeing that.
Yeah, it starts somewhere, right? Like the little kids have to start somewhere, and so they'll grow into the players like Corey Browns or others. Northrop's goalkeeper, like they'll grow into some of those players someday, and we'll be talking about them here on the show and sectionals winning championships later on. So yeah, that's awesome. Paul, how about you? What's your moment of the week?
Yeah, I think just the sectionals is the theme. You know, it's so many games, it's a flurry of games, like you said. Some played 3, some played 2, some played 1. But I had fun cheering on my daughter and the Homestead girls, and then just watching all the other games I could. You know, there's good TV coverage, and just watching the scores as they rolled in, and as your wife said, got to kind of nerd out a little bit and say, what does it all mean? Right? Can we make sense of the results? And I just had a lot of fun kind of doing some deep dives on that.
Yeah, that's awesome. We got Dwayne Rhodes in the chat here over in Ohio. He did mention, shared with us sometime this last week from his alma mater in Ohio, Lexi Good, setting a school record for scoring 89 goals, topping a 30-year record at Elida High School. That's pretty crazy. So not specifically in the Fort Wayne area, but how about that? 89 goals in a career is something.
Wow.
Pretty cool there. Thanks, Dwayne, for that shout out. I'm going to go with this one, guys. Like, there were a number of moments this week. Our Homestead boys did play 3 games this last week. We didn't get the bye in the first round, but that's how it goes when there's no, it's not a seeded draw. It's a blind draw going into sectionals. We'll talk about that later, maybe too. We played 3 games. We had a lot of great moments that we got to see. But at the same time, like my moment of the week was before the sectional championship game. We were out on the field, our boys were warming up, and it wasn't anything too aggressive yet. They were just passing balls around and juggling together, joking, waiting for everyone to show up, and just taking a few moments and just wandering our half of the field and having individual conversations with every one of our players, even if it was just a fist bump and how you feeling today kind of thing, it was a cool moment, and just got to see kind of where everybody's head's at going into this championship game. And some were like, man, we got this. I'm good. We're ready to go. And some was like, man, I can't lock in this. I'm so like antsy right now. I can't lock in. And so just having those moments with each individual player was just a cool moment for me this week. And eventually they did lock in, man, because we came away with a 3-0 win in that game. So lots of fun there, lots of cool things we could talk about, but let's get into some of these sectional matches this last week. I've got kind of in our rundown, we can go all over the place with this one. I just wanted to highlight some notable things that stood out to me in sectionals, and then I'll let you guys all jump in with yours. I talked last week, I've talked previously in previous weeks about the Southside boys, right? And I think even last week said they were like the story of the season for me. And I said early on after we played them, they're going to surprise some people. They're going to shock some people. And holy cow, did they. beating Northrop in the sectional semifinals and moving on to play a tough Carroll team and holding them 0-0 at halftime. Landon Wells did score early in the second half, and he scored late in the second half. So it was a 2-0 win for Carroll over Southside. But Southside gave them a game. I sat there and watched that while I watched my daughter play volleyball. I had that game up on my phone watching, and it was quite something. So that was something that just stood out to me, that the Southside boys just believing in the system and what they have going on. Missing their starting goalkeeper in this game, wasn't in the match, missing one of their top players who got injured early in the season that I didn't even know about. And the heart that these kids have showed is pretty incredible. So what a sectional run that Southside boys had. Paul, how about you, man? Anything notable jump out at you this week?
Oh yeah. On the girls' side, with our being 3A girls sectional, we hadn't our eye on what's going to happen coming out of the Northrop versus Carroll girls game, and I think people would agree that Carroll was probably favorite going in. They beat Northrop 4-2 earlier in the season, but anything can happen, right? Someone has to win the game, and it turned out to be Northrop in PKs. I think it was 4-2 in PKs in the very end. And it was a thriller, and that's awesome that game was on Summit City Sports, because you better believe people were watching that game and just stunned, cheering at the TV, whatever. It was a thrilling game. And Brian, a couple of weeks ago, we talked about, I think it was a Homestead, was the 0-0 Blackhawk Christian, where you guys tied, but you had a PK moment just during the regular game, and I think I asked you, and you guys missed it. I said, would you want to go into PKs at the end? And you said no, because the momentum is not on our side. Well, this was doubly momentum, because Carroll was up 1-0 and at the halftime, and then very early second half, Carroll missed or had a PK saved. So it's still 1-0. Like literally 2 minutes later, Northrop gets a PK and they score. And 1-1 was the final. Going into PKs, who do you think had the momentum, based on that? So it's like what you said absolutely came true.
Yeah. I'm good like that, man.
Yeah, but you're a keeper, but we don't want to give too much credit. Generally speaking, you're pretty good at that.
Yeah.
Go Diller.
Yeah. Other notable moments, Todd, Micah, as you guys were watching, as you were coaching in this last week's sectionals.
I think for me, and I mentioned it earlier, is I don't think we're giving as much love to the Dwenger girls as we should. We've talked a lot about Blackhawk, a lot about Southside, Homestead, Carroll, but Dwenger has been one of the more consistently successful teams out of our area. They won a state championship, I think, in like 20 or 21, maybe even a little earlier before that, but I think that's the most recent state championship that came out of the area. And they played tough. They have some really good players, Sammy Asalagi. And I don't want to go through it because I'm going to miss some players. I don't mean to, but they played really well. So I'm excited to see what they're going to do against Belmont. We've even talked about Belmont quite a bit, but I think that's going to be a very, very good match going forward. So shout out to the Dwenger girls. Logan over there as a first-year coach with them, I think he's done a really good job.
Yeah, that's good. Good. Todd?
Well, I'm going to go back to Northrop, and I alluded to it a little bit in the soccer moment of the week, but watched 3 of the games there, and I'm going with the goalkeeping. Right, goalkeepers sometimes don't get the love, but Northrop's goalkeeper, Destiny, and I'm going to butcher her name, Urxelben, Leo, Heliana Bada, and then Snyder's keeper in the loss against Leo, Alexa Thomas, went for 15 saves. All 3 of them had PK saves during the regular flow of the game, not counting the PKs at the end. But to me, the goalkeeping was really a difference in that whole sectional. But yeah, just some fantastic, especially from Destiny and Alexa at Northrop and Snyder in those games. They just played out of their minds.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just shows how much a good goalkeeper makes a difference, especially on the girls' side where there's just not a lot of classically trained goalkeepers around. So when you do get one, they make such a difference in the game.
I try and be careful, right? Because I coach at Homestead, from talking about our team too much here on the show. But since you brought up goalkeepers, I will give a shout out to our goalkeepers. Jude Rumba played just an incredible match. We beat, it was Warsaw 2-0 on Wednesday night. Early in the match, had a double save that I think changed the game. One of those goals goes in, it changes how we play, it changes how Warsaw presses, it changes the game. And a double save just right off the bat early in the game was incredible. Had a couple good saves against East Noble in the championship game there as well. But another goalkeeper, Jack Zeiger, who's been playing center back for us this year, is an outstanding goalkeeper. I don't know if you saw our story. I don't know if you saw it on Summit City Sports. They posted, hits a ball, a free kick from, he's probably 40 yards off of the end line, but he hits it diagonally. He's near the sideline, hits it to the far post, bends it in, probably a 55-yard shot, maybe 60 if you total it all up with that angle. Like, it was crazy in the upper corner. And no one expected it. I'm frustrated on the bench because the kid on the Owen Murphy's on the back post, not even making an attempt for this ball, but he saw better than I did. That ball was already tucked into the back post. It was just an incredible shot. So shout out to our goalkeepers there at Homestead, one on the field and one making saves in the back. Pretty awesome.
It was an amazing shot.
Embarrassment of Rich. Yeah, you have
What's that?
Jack Zeiger is a great goalkeeper, and yet he's your center back. Talk about an embarrassment of riches where, some teams are struggling to find one good goalkeeper. You have two, essentially.
Yeah, we do. We've got a good goalkeeping squad there at Homestead. I'm blessed to be able to coach some good players there.
All the coaching, right, Brian?
Yeah, I don't know about that. I'm blessed to be able to coach them. Let's go through these sectionals, sectional by sectional. We'll talk about some of the things we saw. We talked about, some notable moments already, but I want to get into some of the games that we saw. And if you remember, we got into our sectional preview. We started with 1A girls, 2A girls, 3A girls, went that way. We're going to reverse the order tonight, and we're going to start with the 3A boys and work our way to the 1A girls sectionals. So I'm going to throw these up on the screen. And Paul, I think you even recorded our predictions going into some of these. So I don't know if we have all of those, but we have a lot of those here that we'll talk about and see how things played out, if they played out the way we expected them to. So 3A boys Carroll sectional here. This was sectional 6. We had Southside over Northside in the first round, DeKalb over New Haven, and Carroll over Snyder. And then Southside, as we mentioned, with the big win over Northrop, and Carroll with a win over DeKalb, and then Southside Carroll, 2-0 Carroll in the championship game there in that sectional. Fort Wayne Footy prediction was that Carroll was going to beat Northrop in the final in this one, and it turns out that Carroll did win, but it was not over Northrop there. So thoughts on this sectional, guys? I know we talked a little bit already about Southside and Carroll, but leading up to that, the games, anybody surprise you in what you saw here? Any games that besides that Southside Northrop one that we've already kind of mentioned?
Yeah. I actually watched that Carroll final game on TV versus Southside. You're right. It was a great battle. And I know Carroll typically plays on grass on their home field, but they moved this host venue to their football field. And I think it was really, really well done overall, actually. I think they had a multi-camera system going on. So props to Carroll for the production level of their sectional hosting. But yeah, I think, we predicted Carroll over Northrop, but Southside said otherwise, and it wasn't like, oh, it was a fluke game, and they still gave Carroll a heck of a matchup as well. So nothing fluky there in the end on the way it played out.
Do you guys know off the top of your head? I know Carroll was, depending on which ranking system you looked at, either 2 or 3 in the state of Indiana, based on Coach's poll or Max Prep's poll. Do we know where Southside was ranked? I don't have that in my notes here handy, but it wasn't close to the top 10.
No,
It was on that
70.
graphic.
Yeah, it's on the graphic there. Yeah, so these
This one here?
no. Go back to the
No,
bracket.
the
Oh, there we
sectional
go.
graphic.
See, yeah, we got the record, and then
Yeah.
those ranks are going into the game, and you can actually see that they recalculate. So they were 73 versus a 43, so like a 30-point underdog, if you will, against Northrop, and then they recalculated. Max Preps does twice a week, and they recalculated them, and it actually bumped them up to 56. I mean, that win
Yeah.
over Northrop was huge, but it's still a 40 plus, 50 plus difference
Yeah.
versus Carroll's 4.
Yeah, pretty incredible. And, I guess you got to bump them up in the ranking system because now all those teams that were ahead of them are no longer in sectional. There's some of them that lost. And so you got to bump them up, I guess, according to Max Prep's ranking. So again, just another shout out to Southside. We've shown them a lot of love already, but big shout out to Southside High School there. Let's move on to the sectional 5 hosted at Homestead. Again, we've talked about this one a little bit already. East Noble with the 5-1 win over Columbia City, Warsaw with the 4-0 win over Huntington North, and then Homestead with the 5-0 win over Wayne. And then East Noble takes on Marion. In the next round, Marion had the bye, 4-0 win over Marion, and then Homestead 2-0 win over Warsaw, which we talked about, and then a Homestead 3-0 win over East Noble in the final there. And so if you follow, the rankings, East Noble bumped up 9 ranks there, according to Max Preps as well, because of their performance on the field. Now, I was there, watched a lot of these games, even our opponents' games, and obviously coached Homestead's games. So I saw a lot of these. I'll reserve comment for now. As you guys look at these, I don't know if you saw highlights or anything as you look at the score lines there. Did it play out as you anticipated?
Well, I don't know anything about the games, but I find it very interesting that the losing teams in that entire sectional scored 1 goal. So there's
Interesting.
big parity there.
Yeah, Columbia City
scored 1 goal in their loss. Everybody else was a shutout.
Shutout, yeah.
How about that? I didn't pick up on that. But of course, another goalkeeper would do that. Yeah, that is very interesting that the games were, and they weren't totally lopsided. There were attacks on goal in all of these games. And so it wasn't lopsided as maybe the score lines let out. To see. Interesting there.
But for Homestead to beat Warsaw twice, and I mean, you can beat a good team once, but to have to beat a good team twice, who you've already seen and they've seen you, that's a pretty good accomplishment. So
yeah, and I felt like Warsaw played a different style this time. So we had beaten them 3-1 earlier in the season, and this time they sat back in a mid block and didn't press anything beyond midfield. They'd have a one striker pushing up high, sitting between our center backs, so they couldn't just dink the ball around between the two of them. But everyone else stayed back in this mid block and just waited for us to cross midfield, and then tried to pack it all in and keep us contained. And so they played a different style, and we were able to adjust to it. I don't think it was the prettiest game I've ever seen, but it wasn't ugly. It was just it wasn't the prettiest game, but it was part of the Warsaw forced Homestead to play a style that we maybe didn't want to play or weren't used to playing. And so kudos to our guys for pulling that one out.
More of a survival mode kind of thing. We're not going to get too risky to try to score. And if we have to play for a PK shootout, so be it.
Yeah, I think they probably had the advantage in speed over us overall. They do have some really fast players, and so they sat back and said, possess the ball, possess the ball, possess the ball. As soon as you make a mistake, we're kicking it and we're running.
Okay.
And again, they almost did it. Jude had to make a double save there early on in the game till we adjusted to that speed and played a little differently in the back. So kudos to Warsaw for coming in with a game plan that changed the way we played and had to figure it out midstream. So I will say again, because I did see these games, East Noble looked pretty good against Columbia City. They looked pretty good against Marion, but unfortunately I'll say this, Marion, once they got down a goal, just you could see their body language just kind of drop. And they were like, well, we lost this one. And they were, some players and coaches were trying to motivate them, but overall they just looked like they sunk. And then it was just another couple quick goals that East Noble put in on them, sending East Noble to the final. So, we'll talk about regional matchups here in a minute because these two will play each other. Let's move on to the boys 2A sectional at Belmont here. Woodland over Manchester 6-2. We've got Concordia Lutheran over Norwell at 4, and then Lures over Belmont, and then 9-0. And then there's an exciting matchup between Lures and Concordia Lutheran, from what I understand. Anybody see that one? We're part of that one. I know we've heard stories. We talked about it a little bit earlier.
I didn't see the game. I've just heard all the stories about it. Two PK goals for Lures. One was very much contested by each of the coaches at Concordia. From what I heard, it was just a very hard fought game. Lures didn't, from what I've heard, again, I didn't watch it. Very few opportunities on goal. Obviously with their 2 goals scored on PKs. There's probably a lot of frustration from the coaching staff and all that. But overall, I mean, this is a repeat of the very first game that Lures and Concordia played that went into PKs. That was game 1 to lead off each of their seasons. So 2 very closely matched teams. So it was always going to come down to 1 goal, maybe even PKs. And that was out of this group. Those 2 teams are probably going to win this sectional. So congrats to the Lures. I know Concordia is really disappointed. My son is disappointed, but hopefully we'll see a lot from Lures going forward.
And that was the one we picked, right? Lures over Concordia in the semifinals. We knew that'd be a close one, but given Concordia's win last year, we thought Lures would be out for blood, and apparently it
maybe literally
that. It sounds that way. But Lures in it. Go ahead. Yeah,
I know it was a very, very physical game. Talking to some people who were there, and I think some of that might have also been exacerbated by Belmont. I mean, the condition of the pitch. Some games that are been playing there, I saw a picture afterward. There's a lot of mud going on, and it might not be the ideal situation. So I think there were several factors at play in that game that just made for a very intense game.
Yeah. Interesting to me. Let me throw this back up here. Woodland 14-2 had a great season. We didn't talk much about Woodland on the show here, and I would have liked to have seen them play because it sounds like they've had a pretty decent season and gave Lures a run for their money in that 1-0 championship game. So kudos to Woodland. Shout out to Woodland for a great season. And we should have talked more about you probably. Wasn't on the radar for me very often, but they've had a great season. Good job, Woodland.
When Diller's not here to defend himself, because it was one of our footy side bets was Diller thought that Manchester over Woodland because they had two really good scorers on the season. So you never know, and it didn't work out that way. But like you said, Woodland. If you go back now and look at the rankings, we see that the rankings actually do a pretty good job predicting because it was like a 23 versus an 82 in that case, and didn't quite lie in that case.
Yeah, and that's actually why Dustin. That's why Dustin's not on the show tonight. He didn't want to have to face you on that one.
He lost the bet. No.
Todd, did I cut you off?
Talking about rankings there.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it was just he started talking about the rankings, but I noticed on that little graphic that Woodland actually dropped in rankings with a win.
It wasn't big enough.
Going from the semifinal to the final, they went from 23rd to 24th.
Wow. Yeah, interesting. That calls the question. Everything else we're going to talk about later, Paul, in your chart. At what point did you count the rankings on that chart?
Yeah. So they do. Max Preps calculates rankings twice a week, and as it turns out, I think they did it on the 9th this week. And these games were played. They did it change, these games were playing the 8th for the semifinals. So that's why you see them not changing from first round to the semifinals. And then just so happened it was that day of the week where they recalculated them and they factored in those previous couple games, and that's why you get a new ranking for the championship game. They don't automatically recalculate them every game.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how it worked out nicely, just to see the impact of the semifinal result on the ranking.
Yeah, for sure. I want to move a little quicker here through some of these sectionals here, so because we've got another conversation I want to get to about seeding sectionals as we go. So 2A boys, West Noble, Angola over Garrett, first round 3-2. West Noble over Lakeland 4-0. Bethany Christian over Dwenger. That was a bit of it was a shocker to me, but by ranking they were ahead of Dwenger there. So maybe we should have seen that coming. Leo over Angola in the semifinals, and Bethany Christian over West Noble. And then Leo outs Bethany Christian in an upset, according to rankings. They're in the championship game 3-2, a number 12 over number 3 seed there. I believe we picked Leo coming out of that one. Is that correct there, Paul? Do you have the notes there in front of you?
It was Leo or Dwenger. Once again, Diller said Dwenger. So I'm just kidding.
We're not going to invite him back then. That's good.
No, it was a toss up. Leo or Dwenger is who the podcast thought would come out of that, and we totally overlooked Bethany Christian, which is
completely
I apologize
overlooked
for that. Yeah. So some of the inside scoop I know with Dwenger is they had 4 starters who were injured who couldn't play in that game, including their goalie was out. So that kind of put them at a disadvantage. Bethany Christian ended up winning, got to play with who you have on that day. But and I also heard that Bethany Christian West Noble game was just a fantastic game. That third winning goal was like a last second corner kick that Bethany Christian put in to win it. So it was a thriller and probably supposedly one of the better games of the sectional from what I heard.
Yeah. Bethany, typically, I believe that's the area where my wife grew up, actually. I believe they typically have a pretty good team. I just didn't give them any thought going into this because my brain has been so focused on Fort Wayne area schools. And I know that sectional was so widespread, it drew from a large area. And so, I didn't even look at the ranking there, but Bethany Christian's had a great season. I think 11-5-2, if I'm reading that right. From this 11-5-2 on the season, and come up against a Leo team that also had a good season, 10-4-3. And Leo again advances. So congratulations to Leo moving on to the regional semifinal. Let's move on to the boys 1A. This is one we got a question about Lakewood Park Christian's matchup early on against Westview. We'll see how that one turned out. We had Canterbury boys over Central Noble 7-0 in the first round. Westview taking it to Lakewood Park Christian in a 2-0 win, and then Blackhawk Christian 8-0 over Eastside. Moving on to the semifinals, we had Canterbury over Prairie Heights 9-0. We had Blackhawk Christian over Westview 1-0. That was a tight matchup. And then a closer match maybe than I anticipated with Blackhawk over Canterbury in the championship 4-0. And so going into this one, I think we all agreed this was Blackhawk's sectional to lose. Like something had to happen for them to lose, but Westview came on strong. I know Westview's had a good season, and they held Blackhawk to one goal, which very few teams this season have been able to do that. Yeah. Any takeaways from that one before we move on? Notable moments?
Well, it was 2-1, I believe, at half. Blackhawk went up 2-0 in that final match, and Canterbury pulled within 2-1 with a PK late first half. So, I mean, they gave them a run for the first half, and then apparently, Blackhawk pulled away in the second half. So, probably wasn't, it was meant to be, I think. This feels about right. But once again, a tough lower bracket there to start off with.
We saw Canterbury earlier in the season, and I'm surprised that they came in with a 7-0 win and a 9-0 win, and then they kept it tight with Blackhawk, it sounds like, for a long time in that matchup. So they've come a long way in this one season, and so credit to their coaching staff, credit to their players for digging in and really making something here, making a run there in sectionals. So good for you, Canterbury. For that, and Blackhawk is moving on to the regional. We'll talk again about their matchup a little bit later here in the show. We do have a comment from Tracy Zimmerman in the chat. Woodlands 1-0 loss in the finals was surprising. They had a great year. Yeah. Again, just to reiterate, we didn't talk about Woodland much this year, and I wish we would have been a little bit more aware, and they would have been more on our radar. So we'll pay attention next year. If we've learned nothing else, pay attention to Woodland soccer this next season. All right, moving on to the girls 3A Huntington North sectional. There were just a handful of teams in this one, with Southside over Wayne in the first match, 4-0. Southside beats Huntington North 2-0 in the next one. And in the other semifinal, the other side of the bracket was Homestead and Columbia City with the byes, but met up in the semifinal. Homestead over Columbia City 8-0. And then Homestead with the big win over Southside 12-0 in the sectional championship. That's again one that we thought Homestead was theirs to lose. These are teams that they should beat running through here. Todd, any thoughts on the girls 3A sectional finals there over in Huntington North?
Well, again, I noticed the losing teams didn't score a goal in the entire section. If you look at that 8-0, 12-0, 2-0, the Southside over Huntington North was a tight game, but the others were pretty much blowouts. It was, I don't think there was any question Homestead was walking away with that one.
Yeah. Paul, any comments there, or Micah? This is more your guys' realm in the women's soccer here, so
I'm going to defer to Paul on this one. I haven't had I've at Concordia we played Wayne, we played Southside. I haven't seen the Homestead girls yet, but looking at that, just the difference in rankings where Homestead's undefeated, 16-0, number 3 in the state, and I think the next highest rank was like 66. I could be wrong.
Yeah.
I just looked at the graphic briefly, and then you get into the final, and it's a 12-0 loss for Southside. So, I think this could be another argument for some sort of seeding where maybe we can get a more competitive match in the finals. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't have much else to add to that. Homestead controlled the games, went in there and played the game and got out. So we hadn't seen any of these teams during the regular season. We're not in the SAC conference, so these are all new matchups. Any one of these teams would have been. So we're looking forward. Like I said, we had our eyes that evening on the Northrop Carroll game as well, because we were really excited to come out with a sectional win and proud of our record so far.
Yeah. Good. We'll get into again like the regional matchups here in 1 second. Let's go move on to 3A girls. Northrop sectional. We had Northrop over Northside. Again, a big one there, 9-0. We had Leo 2-0 over Snyder in the semifinal. And Northrop over Carroll, we talked a little bit about in penalties in the other semifinal, and then Northrop beating the Leo girls 3-2 in the championship there. Now, this one is interesting to me. What did we say? What was our prediction on this one? Let me go back here.
Carroll over Leo in finals. Yeah.
Carroll over Leo in the finals.
But Brian said Northrop might be in the mix.
Ooh, who said that?
I think his name was Brian.
Ah, yes. Brian did say Northrop might be in the mix. How about that? And they did it with stellar goalkeeping in PKs. So how about that? Well done, Northrop, for proving me correct again. No, those were some tough matchups. And all I wanted to say about this one, so my personal commentary is the Leo girls. I know we talked early in the season, had a rough start to a season, right? With Homestead and Carroll right at the top. It started rough, but man, they fought back. They played well. They had ended up with a pretty good season at 10-5 or 11-5 ultimately at the end of it all, and a tight game in the sectional championship. So well done, Leo girls, for turning things around there. You guys have other thoughts on? You've played some of these teams before. You've seen them on the field. That turn out as you expected?
I didn't see the result Carroll over Northrop over Carroll. Sorry, happening. Northrop is a good side. Like let's not debate that. Ali Diaz is great. Nuri is amazing. They have great goalkeeping play. Jay over there has the girls playing in his system, and he has a great culture with us. And they've had success, right? Like it's usually always been Northrop and Carroll, and whoever wins that game advances into the regional finals and potential state play as well. So hopefully Northrop can make a run. I think they're a really good team.
Yeah.
Shout out to Ellie Tedeschi as well. I mean, like we talked about this earlier in the season, where they have a more rounded roster, more girls that are popping up that make a more cohesive team, and put the goalie Destiny on top of that, and it was great. I mean, Carroll controlled that game. They knocked it around possession wise, but neither team had a ton of opportunities. Both keepers made some really nice saves during the game, but it just came down to grinding out PKs in the end.
Yeah, and you mentioned Ellie. I believe she's a freshman too.
Yes.
Unfortunately, I'll have to see her for a couple more years. But
she'll be making an impact.
Yeah, she's a good player.
Yeah.
Well, I'll throw in that they got the sophomore Anna Gerber as well. That was all in the final. Was all over the field.
She scored the first goal.
Creating havoc. Scored a goal. Had a foul for one of the PKs, and then took a foul for the other PK. So she was everywhere.
Yeah. So they're young too. So that'll be definitely a team to watch next year.
Northrop's building something. Northrop girls, we look forward to seeing you for years to come, for sure. 2A girls Canterbury sectional. We have Lures over Heritage 3-0. Norwell over Canterbury 3-0. Belmont over New Haven 11-0 in that first round. Second round saw Lures over Woodland 2-1, and Belmont over Norwell 2-0, and Belmont over Lures 3-0 in that one. So I'm going to steal your thunder on this one, Todd, and say, look at that one game where there was only one goal scored. The rest of them were shutouts in that sectional there. So any other thoughts besides the goals that weren't scored, Todd?
How about some of the goals that were scored? If you remember in the preview show, I said Belmont was not going to give up a lot of goals, and right now they're on I think 11-game shutout streak. But to Micah's credit, he said Ani Krukenberg was going to score some goals. 7 goals in that sectional for.
Wow.
So they're finding the goals and shutting people out. So look out for Belmont. They got Dwenger next though.
Yep. And Dwenger's Micah pointed out earlier is on having a great season and has for quite a while now. So there you go. Let's go to the girls 2A East Noble sectional. We had Lakeland over DeKalb in penalties. Another one in penalties. Fort Wayne. This is Dwenger sectional and Concordia Lutheran. So this is one, Micah, you're probably most familiar with. Dwenger over Angola 9-0, East Noble over West Noble 4-0, and then Concordia Lutheran over Garrett 11-0. Man, you guys had a strong performance in that one. Micah, we had Dwenger over Lakeland 3-0 in the semifinals. Concordia Lutheran over East Noble 5-1 in the semifinals, and then Dwenger with the 2-1 win over Concordia in the sectional championship. Now, Micah, I'll defer to you on this one since you were engaged in most of those games with your team there at Concordia.
Yeah, everything kind of played out how I thought it would, with the exception of that Lakeland and DeKalb game. We played DeKalb earlier in the year, and I was impressed with what they could do and the players that they had. So I didn't see that one coming. I didn't watch that game, but from what I heard is that Lakeland sat deep and DeKalb just couldn't get through. Just kind of playing for that, low scoring game, potentially getting into PKs, and then whatever will happen at that point. Which, I mean, they did well. So, but yeah, I always thought it would be Concordia and Dwenger in the finals, just with how the matchups landed with the blind draw. I felt we had a pretty favorable draw at Concordia. So I thought we always expected to get into the finals, and
right, because last year was Concordia that advanced. I did hear a nice little story from a parent, because we had some teammates, like club teammates, playing against each other in this game. Actually, several. I know for the 09 Dresden girls. So yeah, they said they got together, had a nice picture at the end with Maylee and Corey, and then
Yeah.
you had Addie and Lindsay and
Yeah.
Margaret and et cetera on the other side. So it all ended amicably.
Yeah, there's a nice little rivalry, or I would like to think so. Maybe Dwanger doesn't think it's a rivalry, but it's a match that we always look forward to. The Lutherans versus the Catholics, and the schools are very close to each other. So it's a fun little match. I know the girls look forward to it. So, but Dwanger's a good side. They're kind of the standard in 2A, at least in the Fort Wayne area. And we've been chasing them. We've closed the gap pretty significantly over the last couple of years. So we're looking to continue to do that.
Yeah. And our last one here, the 1A girls Blackhawk sectional, we had Blackford over North Miami in penalties, another one in penalties. So very few, but a couple of them did go to penalties. South Adams over Wabash 4-1. South Adams over Blackford 2-1. In the semifinals, we had Blackhawk Christian over Eastbrook. Both had byes in the first round, met in the semifinals. Blackhawk over Eastbrook 2-0. And then Blackhawk Christian girls 5-1 over South Adams in the championship game there. So that one, I believe, went almost as we predicted. Paul, you got those in front of you. We thought that was Blackhawk for sure,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. I think my note was just Blackhawk. I think that was the consensus there. South Adams, I heard. I didn't watch the game, but I heard that they actually came out the aggressor and went up 1-0 early. Probably stunned Blackhawk a little bit because they're not used to giving up goals, let alone a loss.
Right.
And it was let's see. Yeah, score until late first half. So it was 1-1 at half. But as the course of the game went through, Blackhawk just pulled ahead for the 5-1 win. But they made it interesting. So credit to South Adams for bringing a game.
How about that? Todd, Micah, any thoughts on the 1A girls 1A sectional there?
I'm just excited to see where I'm not familiar with Faith Christian, their matchup in the regional. But if there's a team that deserves to win, that plays the game the right way, I would really want to see Blackhawk be successful in this tournament.
Yeah,
agree.
Let's go to some other notables that I don't know that we mentioned them at the top of the show, but the number of schools that had both boys and girls advance through sectionals. So we had Blackhawk 1A, both boys and girls advance. So congratulations to Blackhawk and what you're doing there with your soccer program. The Lures boys advance, the Leo boys advance. Girls lost in the championship. Southside both got knocked out, but Homestead both advanced. Boys and girls both advanced in the sectional tournament. And I think it's been a while for the Homestead boys to win sectionals. So they've been right there, but have not won it for a number of years now. So it's pretty exciting that both Homestead boys and girls are moving on in that one. Paul, I want to throw up this chart, this graph that you made, and this may not hit home for everybody. But I was really excited to see this because we talk about the ranking system in for Max Preps or the coaches poll here locally and all that. And so you use Max Preps ranking system for this, and you plotted these games based on the difference in the rank between the two teams that were facing each other, and the goal differential was at the outcome of the game.
Yes.
To see how this plotted on a chart. So we'll start with the boys sectional. We don't want to spend a whole lot of time on this. I just thought it was interesting to flash up here. So walk us through this, Paul, in 30 seconds or so, what this looks like and what this shows us.
Yeah, there's no strong statistics below this or beneath this, so it's just more my PowerPoint engineering. But these are real stats from the games. So anything on the left-hand chart, it was a close matchup. If you look at Max Preps, and anything on the right side, it was a big disparity on the Max Preps rankings. But what this is showing is on the left-hand side that even I'm calling anything that's like below a 10-point differential in ranking is pretty much a toss-up, but still anything above a couple of points in ranking strength for a team, those came out to be the winners. And then as you go higher up in the ranking differential, you'd expect the the better team to win by more. So that's what that green is showing. The bigger difference, the bigger the goals are going to be in the game. But what I was kind of surprised to see here is there were very few upsets, really, when Max Preps, if you look to them to be the predictor of the game. And I pointed out, we already talked about these. Southside over Northrop. There's a 30-point differential, and that game was only decided by 2 goals. Leo over Bethany, Christian, and DeKalb, which those were both closer ranked games. So I'm not sure you would call them much of an upset, but it's just kind of a cool thing to look at. That should we seed teams? I don't know. We'll talk about that in a second. But the whatever algorithm Max Preps is using, because we're at the end of the season, they have a lot of data that's gone into these teams. If we did this, 2 games in, it wouldn't be as good. But they seem to have calculated a strength of each team, which leads to a ranking that is pretty accurate when you put those teams head to head.
Yeah, which is interesting because I think if I remember correctly, at the beginning of the season, we were all like, Max Preps rankings, what is that? Like, where do they get their stats? Like, can we trust that? And so now we're here at the end of the season going, it actually looks pretty accurate, at least in the sectional matchup. So I'll throw the girls up here. This is, it's a different chart because it's the girls sectional tournament, but we had maybe a few additional upsets here on this side of the chart than we did on the boys.
Yeah, we talked about Lakeland over DeKalb already. Northrop over Carroll. That felt like, honestly, I think people probably expected Carroll to win, and it's kind of on that edge of, well, maybe technically it was an upset as well, but the Max Preps kind of confirms that. And the 20 point differential there as well. But I think Todd mentioned also that there's some really big disparity in some of these sectionals. So you're seeing that on the right hand side in the green area, that just some really big scatter, and it led to really big goal differentials. A lot of those, a lot to nothing type games.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. Again, I don't know that those are stats we want to dive too deep into, but man, if we looked at this and we could compare this moving on to our regional matchups, it'd be interesting to see who Max Preps would predict would come out ahead. So let's jump to some of those regional matchups here real quick, and then we'll come back to our seeded sectionals and our debate on this one. Girls regional matchups, 3A Homestead at Northrop. These are on Thursday. The girls girls regional semifinals are happening on Thursday. So Homestead will be playing at Northrop against Northrop. Belmont will be at Dwenger, and in the girls 1A sectional, Blackhawk will host Faith Christian this next Thursday. And the boys side of it, boys regional, will be Carroll at Homestead. It'll be Lures at Leo, and then Argos at Blackhawk Christian there as well. So we look at some of the boys rankings. It has Carroll over Homestead, Carroll at number 4, Homestead at number 16. So we're like, maybe that's a 1 or 2 goal differential based on the chart that we saw, because it's a 12 point ranking difference. Lures over Leo potentially, but that's within a 10-point system, or 10-point ranking differential. So
also,
that looks like it could be a toss-up too. So these are going to be interesting as you guys look at these. Pick one game now that you're like, this is the one I'd really lock in on, is going to be the game to watch this week. Todd?
I'm going to stick with Belmont and go Belmont Dwenger. I think could be a good game. Dwenger's got the firepower, they've got the talent. Belmont isn't giving up goals.
Do you know if they played this year? Did they play in the season? I don't recall if they did.
That's a good question.
I don't know.
Paul's looking it up right now.
Yeah.
So much.
Because I'd be curious what that result was if they did play.
Micah, while he's looking that up, what's the game that's going to stand out to you this week?
I was going to say the same game. Obviously Belmont and Dwenger, they're very close to Concordia in terms of we play them every single year. But that Carroll Homestead match, I know a lot of those boys on both the teams. I know the quality that's going to be shown. So that's going to be probably the best game to watch in terms of just pure soccer. So I'm trying to clear my schedule for Wednesday. Hopefully I can get out to that match.
Come on out. Come on out. We'd love to have you. I'll just jump in and say that's my game to watch. But I'll be watching from the sideline with my team, hoping we pull something out in that one. Carroll is a good team. We lost 1-0 to them earlier in the season. You said it's hard to beat a good team twice. We're hoping that's the case. This year we put up a better fight against Carroll and pull that one out. But I do think that's going to be a stellar game to watch. Paul, wrap us up. What's your game to watch?
I got a text from a listener. He's like, "Yep, Dwenger won 2-1 over Belmont. I think that was at Belmont. So there you go. That'll be a great matchup. I don't care about the rankings, whatever going in. I know they're close. I think that's gonna be a good matchup.
Mm-hmm.
And on the boys' side, I'm looking at the 2A Lures at Leo. I mean, there's some strong players on both those teams. Some really top club players on Leo. Same for Lures, has some really strong players. I think either one, whoever comes out of that has a good chance to do some damage in the postseason.
Yeah, for sure.
Boys, that is, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Let's jump into a quick conversation. We're wrapping up. We're almost to the top of the hour here, but we have alluded all night to this sectional pairing system, and it's a blind draw right now. And we've talked about, should it be seeded? Should it be not? And honestly, I don't know the history of this, if it's ever been seeded, if it's always been a blind draw. Some of you may be able to speak to that, but if we were to, there's a reason it's a blind draw, I guess is what I'm saying, and I don't totally know the history of why that is. But if we were to look at this, right, the higher seeded teams have won most of the way through, but the way it stands now, you could have a 5 and a 6 ranked team, which I think there was in the Elkhart sectional. Maybe it was at Concord. I can't remember who hosted that one, with a 5 and 6 ranked team in the state facing off against each other in the first round. And so again, predictability, 5 should beat 6, maybe not, maybe it's a toss up, whatever, if we look at your chart there, Paul. But it's a shame that 5 and 6 in the state have to meet each other in the same sectional in the first round and already start knocking each other out. So then you have teams that are ranked very, very low in the system that get through because they've been playing other teams that are ranked really low on their side of the sectional, and then play like a number 2 or a number 3 seed in the state in the sectional semifinals or sectional championship. And it becomes a really lopsided game, as you guys saw at Homestead there, or at Huntington North and Homestead's game. So the question is there a way to seed, to do sectionals differently, that would be doing it by seeding, by ranking, and then maybe have a different outcome? Would it change the outcome? That's the question. And I'll throw it out there like a hand grenade and let you guys talk about it. Let it blow up and go.
I think with the amount of data that we have available to us, especially with the usage of max preps, where it's mandated that IHSAA teams record their scores, record stats, all of that, and the fact that the algorithm is doing it for us, and based on what Paul has showed, like, it's pretty darn accurate on which team should come out on top. So I would be in favor of ranking. I don't know what that process would look like. It's easy for me to say, oh yeah, that's a great idea. But from a coaching standpoint, it probably require another in-person meeting, add more on my plate, which I don't necessarily want to do. Right. So I don't know. I think from a competitive standpoint, seeding there would be value in it, where you wouldn't take Lures and Concordia. You wouldn't see that matchup early. Last year, Lures and Concordia played in the first round of sectionals. So I think that'll create this, situation where the top team could potentially get knocked out in the first round, and then the other one is able to walk through sectionals. So, I think it avoids that, and it avoids, I think we saw a 12-0 game in one of the sectional finals, which is tough, tough to watch.
I think my regardless if it's max preps or however you want to seed them, my biggest argument is it would make the regular season relevant, because right now none of the games mean anything. They're just friendlies that lead up to some random draw and like, okay, playoffs go. So that's my biggest argument for is get some relevance to these games during the season.
Now
Yeah,
there is you say that as a school that's not in a conference, right? So if there's conference games, those do mean something, but they don't necessarily mean something for sectionals
or playoffs,
for
right,
rankings.
for
But
sectionals,
there's a conference championship there for most of the schools in Fort Wayne.
Yes, but those have no bearing on
just a little
sectionals.
bit. I'm going to dissent a little bit and say, as a fan, I'm not, I don't have a dog in the race, but coaches or a parent or whatever, I can see a good matchup on Monday, on Tuesday, on Wednesday, on Thursday, and on Saturday. I'm not seeing them all on Saturday, so it spreads it out a little bit, and you've got to beat them anyways, right?
Mm-hmm.
So at that point, if you beat them the first game or the last game, to get out of sectionals, the two best teams eventually, theoretically, should meet
at some point.
At some point, right? And so, is it the first match? Is it the second matchup? Is it the championship? So I know there's a lot of factors that go into this, and we don't have time to get too deep into it, but like geographically, it's got to stay, in your same area. You can't do a pure ranking system where number 1 in the state plays number 66 in the state or whatever it is, and they're like Evansville and Angola. Like, you can't have those teams playing each other. It's got to be a regional thing. It's got to be teams close by in the same area. And so you can rank within that and still probably have some decent games in the first round because there's not many teams in each sectional. So you go to the Homestead girls sectional that was hosted there at Huntington North. There were like 6 teams or something, right?
5.
And that one, or 4 teams, something like that. So you're still going to get some good games throughout the week. But yeah, Todd, to your point, yeah, you might have to wait until Saturday and then choose which game you want to see, because all the good teams are there, perhaps. But then you have a team like Southside playing spoiler to Northrop that maybe no one saw coming earlier in the matchup that you wouldn't have seen otherwise because they might have been on other sides of the bracket. So I can see advantages and disadvantages to each, but man, I think the biggest for me, the biggest reason to do a seeding system is to avoid the really, really lopsided championship games. They might be lopsided anyway, even if it's seeded, but man, I want to see a closer championship game that really matters, pushing a team into regionals. Because let's be honest, you come off, let's say the Homestead girls, I think that was the one that was so lopsided. You come off a sectional championship that was super lopsided, and then you go into regionals and you play, who do they play?
Hamilton Southeast. Well, in this one, they're going to play Northrop, and then if they win, the winner of that's going to go to probably play Hamilton Southeastern, who's one of the top in the state. So I know that's one of the things our girls had talked about is, sometimes not getting a tough enough matchup just to help prepare for what's to come. Yeah. And I think that's the argument in my mind for a seeded tournament, because they should technically get harder and harder as you go. Now it will from here on out in regionals. I get that, but sectionals is really, really the one that we're focused on tonight. So you want to rob the children of the joy of sectional Sunday? Is that what you're saying? It's all going to be predetermined. They don't get to sit around and see who they're going to play. Well, I mean, there's still going to be some of that. Like, some of it's foregone, but yeah, there's still going to be some of, like, maybe they're not watching Max Prep's rankings and watching them as closely, and going, okay, who are we going to play? Like, who's top ranked team in our section, right? I don't know. Those are my 2 cents. We could. For a week or 2. What's that? Sorry. You could hold the ranking, like the last 2 weeks of the season, you don't release rankings. Ooh. And then you could still have that sectional Sunday where, who moved where. And so there's ways you can. Todd's going to rob the children of that feeling of we're the best, or we're moving up, or yeah, I get it. So anyway, hey, before we wrap up our show tonight, let me remind you of our Patreon, some of the new content and other content we have over there. We are looking to do a Patreon only live stream. I haven't told you guys this because I just decided right before the show. I put a poll out there and said, what day of the week
would be best for you. So if y'all are available, we're looking to do a Patreon only live stream on Thursday night at 8 p.m. for paid Patreon members. If you're interested in joining us over there, and for the three of you guys on the screen, if you're interested in joining us, we'd love to have you, but not going to hold you to that obligation because I just threw it at you tonight. But we're going to do that, talk about anything from Fort Wayne FC Park and all the new stuff that's happening there to the regional games that will have already happened. Some of them at that point too, that are happening on Friday night or Wednesday night. And some of them will be happening at that point on Thursday night. We should get some results as we speak on that one. Consider joining us over there on Patreon. We have $5 a month, $10 a month tiers, and one-time donation options if you're interested in supporting what we're doing here at Fort Wayne Footy. We'd love your support in that. We have our Patreon members, Christina Copeland and Ryan Smeltzer. Thank you for your support, and thank you for watching tonight. Thank you for listening to Fort Wayne Footy. Thank you for being engaged in soccer in the Fort Wayne community, and specifically this season, the high school soccer teams all around the area. We'll have more news for you next Sunday night as regionals will have wrapped up on Saturday. So we've got, we'll be moving into state semis next Sunday night as we talk on episode 26 of Fort Wayne Footy. Thanks for joining us tonight.